The Russian invaders are concentrating their main efforts on the Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Marinka fronts. Heavy fighting is going on there. More than 30 combat clashes took place during the day. Source: General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook. Information is of 1800 on the 21st of June. Details: on the Lyman front, the Russians carried out unsuccessful offensive actions in the areas of Dibrova in Luhansk Oblast and Serebrianka in Donetsk Oblast. Airstrikes were carried out in the areas of Novohorivka and Bilohorivka in Luhansk Oblast and Seversk, Donetsk Oblast. Stelmakivka, Nevsky, Dibrova, Kuzmin and Bilohorivka in Luhansk Oblast and Torsky, Verkhnyokamyansk, Spern and Rozdalivka in Donetsk Oblast were hit by artillery fire. On the Bakhmut front, the Russians carried out unsuccessful offensive actions in the areas of Orikovo-Vasilivka, Ivanovsky and Bila Hora in Donetsk Oblast. The Russians carried out airstrikes near Kurdyamivka and New York in Donetsk Oblast. Vashukivka, Orikovo-Vasilivka, Bodanivka, Kalinivka, Chasiv Yar, Ivanovsky, Ozaryanivka, Bila Hora, Konstantinivka, Druzhba and Pivnikny in Donetsk Oblast were affected by Russian artillery shelling. On the Avdiivka front, the Russians carried out unsuccessful offensive actions in the areas of Severin and Pervomaysk in Donetsk Oblast. Airstrikes were carried out near Avdiivka, Severin and Pervomaysk. Artillery shelling of the settlements of Alexandropol, Karamek, Novokolino, Berdichi, Stepo, Avdiivka, Tenenk, Sever, Pervomaysk, Netailov and Nevelski in Donetsk Oblast was carried out. On the Marinka front, the Russians carried out offensive actions in the area of Marinka without success. They carried out an airstrike in the Krasnohorivka area. At the same time, the Russians carried out artillery shelling on the settlements of Krasnohorivka, Zoryan, Hostre, Marinka, Heorhivka, Kurakov and Pobeda in Donetsk Oblast. On the Shakhtarsk front, the Russians carried out offensive actions in the areas of Novomikhailivka and Vuhledar without success. An airstrike was carried out in the area of Novomikhailivka in Donetsk Oblast. The settlements of Paraskoviivka, Novomikhailivka, Konstantinivka, Yelizavetivka, Katerinivka, Bowaaplenka, Blahodatna, Prekostivka, Zolotaniva and Glika Novosilka in Donetsk Oblast were shelled. The Russian occupation forces continue to conduct defensive operations on the Zaporizhia and Kherson fronts. Unsuccessful offensive actions were carried out in the area of Pyatikhatki, Zaporizhia Oblast. The Russians carried out airstrikes in the Preobrazhenka and Stepnogorsk areas in Donetsk Oblast. They carried out artillery shelling of the settlements of Novucherituvet, Neskuchny, Blahodatna, Makarivka, Starozhev, Zelin Pol, Temirivka, Novopil and Berlatsky of Donetsk Oblast, Lavadna, Chervon, Huliaipol, Novoandriivka, Stepo, Pyatikhatki, Lobkov and Kamyansk in Zaporizhia Oblast, Zolota Balka, Mikhailivka, Novoalexandrivka, Dubchiny, Kachkarivka, Shliakov, Kozatsky, Mykolaievka, Burhunka, Ivanivka, Sadov, Pridniprovsky, Nadnepryinsk, Molodizhny, Zymivnik, Bilozerka, Romashkov, Antonivka, Kherson, Dniprovsky and Kizimys in Kherson Oblast and Oshakiv in Mykolaiv Oblast. On the Severshina and Slobozhanshina fronts, the Russians maintain a military presence in the border areas with Ukraine. Airstrikes were carried out in the settlements of Leonivka and Mykolaivka, Chernihiv Oblast, and Volfin, Sumy Oblast. The Russians carried out mortar and artillery shelling of the settlements of Rinivka, Yelin, Karpovichy and Leonivka in Chernihiv Oblast, Saradina Buda, Sin, Fodovizh, Novi Verki, Volfin, Shpyl, Obadi, Kindrativka, Lochnia and Stepny in Sumy Oblast, as well as Odnerobivka, Udi, Veterinard, Kazaka Lopan, Vysoka Yarua, Liptsi, Alisivka, Boruvatka, Staritsa, Vovchansk, Vovchansky Kudary, Bochkov, Platonivka, Malavovcha, Varvarivka, Budarki, Rubeln, Eniskine and Myliv in Kharkiv Oblast. On the Kupiansk front, the Russians carried out an airstrike in the Sinkivka area in Kharkiv Oblast. Krasny Persh, Fyholivka, Novomlinsk, Vorokna, Zapadna, Mashutivka, Kyslivka and Berestov in Kharkiv Oblast were subjected to Russian artillery and mortar attacks. On the Volyn and Polysha fronts, the operational situation remains much the same as before. There were no signs of the formation of offensive groups. Combat training and coordination of the Russian armed forces units before they are sent to the areas of combat operations in Ukraine are ongoing at the training grounds of the Republic of Belarus. The General Staff reports that during the day, the aviation of the defense forces carried out 12 strikes on clusters of Russian personnel and 6 airstrikes on their anti-aircraft missile systems. Defenders also destroyed a Russian Mi-24 attack helicopter. During the day, units of rocket forces and artillery hit the command post and the Russian ammunition depot. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported on June 21 that Russia has lost 222,000 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion, with an estimated 540 casualties on June 20. Ukraine war latest. Military keeps advancing south. Zelensky says offensive, slower than desired, but not a movie. Ukrainian forces keep advancing on the southern front line as the summer counteroffensive continues, the military said on June 21. Brigadier General Alexander Tarnavsky, the Tavria military sector commander, reported that Russian forces had lost up to 3 companies of killed and wounded troops, as well as 68 units of hardware in the sector over the past day. He didn't specify the exact number of Russian casualties, but the size of the Russian army's company varies between 30 to 150 troops, depending on the branch. The military also reportedly destroyed 3 Russian ammunition storages, according to Tarnavsky. Ukraine's forces reported successful offensive operations on the southern front line with advances up to 7 kilometers during the counteroffensive. According to the June 19 report by the Institute for the Study of War, the Ukrainian military has been advancing near Bakhmut and in Zaporizhia Oblast and attacking in western Donetsk Oblast. On June 19, the UK Defense Ministry wrote in its intelligence update that Russia had begun relocating its forces from the eastern bank of the Dnipro River to strengthen the Zaporizhia and Bakhmut sectors. On the front line, the heaviest fighting between Ukrainian and Russian forces continues to be in the areas near Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka. General Staff. Russian forces focus on Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Marinka directions. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported on June 21 that Russia continues to focus its main efforts on the Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka directions. In the Lyman direction, Russian troops carried out unsuccessful offensives near Dibrova in Luhansk Oblast and Serebrianka in Donetsk Oblast, the General Staff said. In the Bakhmut direction, Russian forces carried out unsuccessful offensive operations in the vicinity of Orikovo-Vasilivka, Ivanovsky, and Bila Hora in Donetsk Oblast, according to the General Staff. In the Zaporizhia and Kherson directions, Russian forces conducted unsuccessful offensive actions near Pyatakotki, Zaporizhia Oblast, the General Staff added.